Good morning. This is the coffee tasting experience. My name is Brenton, and this is our first episode. I decided to do this because I love drinking coffee. I love experiencing the new flavors in specialty coffee, and I believe that drinking specialty coffee can be an experience. And I want to share that experience with other people. I don't exactly know where this channel is going to go, what's going to happen. Right now, it's pretty simple. I'm going to brew some coffee. I'm going to talk about it, the origin of the coffee, the roaster, and then I'm going to drink it and I'm going to taste it. And I'm going to share some of my tasting notes, some of my flavor notes, the way that I taste coffees with you. And that's about it. And so if you're excited by that and you want to kind of know what that experience can be, stick around. Without further ado, let's drink some coffee. So today I'm going to be brewing some coffee from Vigilante Coffee Company. Vigilante is a coffee shop in Hyattsville, Maryland. They opened their coffee shop in 2014. And I wanted to start out by brewing coffee from Vigilante because it was at their cafe in 2017 where I first had my experience with specialty coffee and really realized that drinking coffee can be an experience. And so it's really kind of cool to start the channel by reviewing one of their coffees. On their packaging, it says that it is the way that they pursue great coffee that really sets them apart. And so you can see the attention to detail that they have in the roasting process, in the how they source their coffees, and then that attention to detail is what you ultimately can pick up as quality in your cup that you brew. Yeah, I'm going to be brewing. This coffee is called Natty Cheffe. This is a coffee from Ethiopia, and it says that it has a floral aroma, flavor notes of blueberry, pecan, brown sugar, and it has a lingering finish. This is a naturally processed coffee, which just means that they leave the fruit on the coffee bean and let it dry for a couple weeks before finishing processing. And it is a heirloom variety of coffee, which is pretty common in Ethiopia, since the coffee is so diverse in Ethiopia as the birthplace of coffee. A lot of the coffees there haven't been able to be categorized just because there's so many. So this is just an heirloom variety of the farm that it was grown on. So there's a few other details on this coffee that are on the website, and I can share those at the end of the video or in the description for all the coffee nerds out there like me. So with that, let's go ahead and brew this. I brewed 20 grams of this coffee at a 1 to 16.75 coffee to water ratio. I ground it to a setting of 10 on my Baratza Encore burr grinder, and I used a water temperature of 205 degrees Fahrenheit. I brewed this coffee using a Hario V60 pour over with a mellow drip to ease agitation in the brew basket. Overall, the brew took about 4.5 minutes and gave me 295 grams of coffee out. All right, here we go. Since this is the first tasting that I've done, I want to share kind of how I do tastings, just so you know, and how to follow along. I start out by swirling and smelling the aroma of the coffee just to pick up any kind of interesting aromas. I've had some coffees that smell one way and taste a completely different way. So I'll write those notes down and then I'll taste the coffee. And as soon as I taste the coffee, I'll look for kind of any jump in your face flavor notes that come out. Normally I find it kind of hard to put my finger on some of those flavors. So if I can't think of anything, then I'll move on to evaluating some of the aspects in the coffee. And so I start off by rating the sweetness, the acidity, and the bitterness on a scale of 1 to 5. And I'll write that down. And that's just because those three are somewhat easy to evaluate. They're easy to distinguish just the level of their presence in the cup of coffee. And then from there, I have a couple other flavor notes that exist in between those three that I'll evaluate, and we'll get into those in just a second. And then I'll also evaluate the body of the coffee, and then the clarity, and then the finish, and then an overall score is what I'll give it. So yeah, that's how I do coffee tastings. I know there's plenty of other ways that people do them, but I found this to be the most helpful for me in order to come up with like a flavor tasting wheel to compare coffees later on. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a smell then. That is sweet. That smells very sweet, very floral, like the packaging says. Definitely has a floral aroma. Definitely has a floral aroma. It's almost like a blueberry muffin or something. It's like sweet blueberries. There's also like almost like a honey nut Cheerio note here. Maybe it's just plain honey. Definitely very sweet smelling coffee. Wow. Ooh, that is tangy. That's. I'm a big proponent of slurping your coffee. Just put that out there. Wow. Any flavor notes that jump right out? Wow, that's doing a lot. Nothing jumps right out other than like a tangy note. But in terms of sweetness, I'd say this is a solid 3. This is a decently sweet cup of coffee. Acidity is more present than I thought it would be. Yeah. I was thinking this would be more of like a pretty low acidity coffee, but let me give that a 3 for acidity as well. And then the bitterness kind of comes in. It is almost a chocolatey bitterness. I'll get to that in a second, but I'm gonna give that a 4 for bitterness. So 3 for sweetness, 3 for acidity, 4 for bitterness. So looking at the tasting aspects, moving from more sweet to more acidic, I have floral and then berry and then wine. The aroma of this coffee was very floral, but I don't find the taste of this coffee particularly floral. It's definitely still there. Even as you sip, you can still get a little bit of a smell of that floral. So I'm gonna give it a 1 for floral, but definitely different than the smell. In terms of berry, you can still definitely get that blueberry flavor, but it is a little on the more punchy side, like a sour blueberry. Not sour in a bad way, but it is a little more tart of a blueberry. So, but the berry note on its own, I'm gonna give that a 4. It's pretty strong. That kind of leans into the wininess of the coffee. So I'll give the wininess a 2. It's not super strong, but it is there. So now, ranging on the acidity to bitterness, I have citrus flavors, spice flavors like baking spices like cinnamon or cloves, and then earthy. So evaluating the citrus flavor in this coffee, I'm getting a lot of like citrus peel notes. It's not super strong, but there is a little bit of a lime flavor that I wasn't picking up before. I'm gonna give it a 3 for citrus. It's definitely present there. In terms of spice, there is a little bit of clove spice, I think. Not very strong, a tiny bit. So this is gonna get a 1 in terms of spice. I don't find this coffee particularly earthy. When I think of earthy, I think of like really darker roasted coffees from like Sumatra and places like that. And this is not really giving me any of those flavors. I'll taste it again just to make sure. But no, this is pretty vibrant. I wouldn't say it's earthy. So I'm going to give it a 0 for earthy. So now we're looking at the flavors that exist between bitterness and sweetness. So I have smoky, chocolate, and caramel. There is some smoke in this. It's kind of like lingering underneath all the other flavors, but it's definitely there. And it's not necessarily hiding either. So I'm gonna surprise myself with this and give it a 3 for smokiness. It's pretty, the more I taste it too, the more I can pick up on that smoky note. It's definitely got some chocolatey flavor to it. Not as much as, I mean, it's cooled down a little bit now, but in the beginning it was a little higher. than now. Now I'd say it's probably at a 2. In the beginning, it was probably closer to maybe a 3.5 or a 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3 for this. Kind of mellows into caramel a little bit. So the caramel flavor note, I'm gonna give a 2. Yeah, that's the flavor tasting wheel for this coffee. Before I finish this up, I'm gonna evaluate the body and the clarity and the finish. So Ethiopian coffees typically have a heavier body, but let me taste this one. It's definitely not as thick as some of the other Ethiopian coffees that I've had. So it is a little lighter on the body. I'd say it's a 2 for body. But yeah, it's actually pretty similar to the kind of the weight of the wire, which is interesting. So I'll give it a 2 for body. I don't have any other notes to add. For clarity, the flavors that I identified in the tasting wheel, they kind of come and go at different times. So I would say this is a pretty strongly layered coffee, and as a result, the clarity, I'm going to give it a 4 for clarity. It's the layers are pretty well distinguished. And the finish, the coffee doesn't linger an excessive amount on my palate, so the finish is going to be, well, actually, you get a little bit of that honey note as part of finish. I'm realizing as I kind of think about the sensation that's still going on. This is a good finishing coffee. I'm going to give this a 4. So yeah, let me go back and just see if I can identify any more flavors as it's cooled down. Man, the honey kind of picks up and goes a little higher at the end. Also getting I'm still getting hints of berry, almost raspberry at this point. Yeah, this is a good cup of coffee. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 3.5. This surprised me a little bit. I've drank this coffee before, and it didn't taste like this. I lowered the water temperature a little bit. It's a little darker roasted than what I typically drink. It is good, so it is a well roasted coffee. But yeah, there you have it. That's how I do coffee tastings. That's how this coffee tasted. And if you've had Vigilante coffee before, or have had this coffee before, go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments. That's something that YouTubers say. I guess I'm a YouTuber now. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. This is fun. Let's do it again. Let's do it again soon. So keep drinking great coffee.